Okay, get ready for a story about a lost kingdom. And honestly, it all comes down to one of the biggest, wildest ironies in all of ancient history. It's about how a nation's most famous son ended up ruling his people's oldest, most hated enemies.
You think you know King Herod, right? The guy who built all those incredible structures, the villain from the Christmas story. But what if I told you the king of the Jews wasn't actually Jewish? How on earth did an ancient enemy of Judea end up on its throne?
To really get our heads around this shocking truth, we have to go back. I mean, way, way back. All the way to the very beginning of a rivalry that would shape the region for thousands of years.
So here it is, the big secret. Herod was an Idumean. He was a descendant of the sworn ancient enemies of the very people he would one day rule. And to understand how that happened, well, we need to start at the source.
It all kicks off with a legendary feud between brothers, straight out of the book of Genesis, a family squabble that put two entire nations on a collision course for centuries to come.
Yeah, believe it or not, this whole epic, centuries-long conflict started right here, with these two guys, Jacob and Esau. They were twin brothers, and their personal rivalry pretty much became the defining story for everyone who came after them. And get this is how an entire nation got its name. Edom literally means red. It's a direct callback to the red stew Esau traded his entire birthright for. I mean, imagine that. Their whole identity was basically forged in a single moment of anger and resentment.
So, the lines are drawn right from the start. On one side, you've got Jacob, who becomes Israel, the father of the Israelites, and on the other, you have his twin, Esau, who becomes Edom, the father of the Edomites. Two brothers, two nations, heading for a major clash.
Now, this family feud didn't just stay in the family. Oh no. It exploded into centuries of war, and it was all building toward one final, unforgivable act of betrayal. So for literally 1,000 years, it's just one conflict after another. But then, you see that date on the timeline, 586 BC? That's the moment everything changed forever. When the Babylonians rolled in to sack Jerusalem, the Edomites didn't just watch, they actually joined the attack.
And this wasn't just some tactical alliance. For the people of Jerusalem, this was the ultimate betrayal. The Edomites were apparently celebrating the city's destruction, they were capturing refugees trying to escape, and they even helped loot the place. This was a wound that was never, ever going to heal.
And the reaction was, you can imagine, absolutely furious. The biblical prophets were just scathing, condemning Edom for cheering on the destruction of their own relatives. From that moment on, their fate as a bitter, hated enemy was sealed.
But, history has a funny way of turning the tables. Centuries later, in a stunning reversal, the Edomite nation wouldn't just be defeated, it would be erased. So, in this incredible flip of the script, the newly powerful Jewish Hasmonean kingdom marches in and conquers the land of Edom, which, by this point, most people were calling Idumea. But the Hasmoneans didn't just want to rule them, they wanted to make them disappear. AD Edomites were given this unbelievable choice. Either you convert to Judaism, the religion of your ancient rivals, and live by their laws, or you get out, you leave your homeland forever. Most of them chose to stay, and with that decision, their entire identity was about to change. And just like that, poof, the Edomite nation was gone. They were now known as Idumeans. Now, they were technically part of the Jewish people, but you can bet they were always seen as outsiders, especially by the elites in Jerusalem. You'd think that's the end of their story, right? Not even close. In fact, this is just the setup for one of the most incredible ironies in all of history. The conquered were about to rule their conquerors. So here's where the story takes its most amazing turn. The Hasmonean dynasty, the same guys who had conquered the Idumeans, starts to get really weak, just torn apart by infighting. And the super shrewd Idumean nobleman, a guy named Antipater, he sees his chance. He was a master politician, and he made the smartest bet he could. He aligned himself with the real power in the world, Rome. And the Romans, well, they needed a strong local guy to keep the peace. So what was Antipater's reward for playing his cards so perfectly? The Romans made his son, Herod, the king of the Jews. I mean, you literally can't make this stuff up. It is the most bitter, unbelievable irony. A descendant of Israel's oldest enemy,
A man whose own people had been conquered and forced to convert was now sitting on the throne in Jerusalem. And who put him there? The Romans.
So what happens to the Idumeans after all this, after their most famous son, King Herod, has his reign? Well, their story had become so completely tangled up with Judea's that in the end, they were destined to share the exact same fiery fate.
In that final desperate war against Rome in 70 AD, something incredible happened. As many as 20,000 Idumean soldiers fought and died right alongside their Jewish countrymen, defending Jerusalem to the bitter end.
After 2 centuries of being absorbed into the Jewish nation, they shared its final tragic destiny. When Jerusalem fell to the Romans, the name Idumean just vanished from history forever.
So the Idumean nation disappeared. But it makes you think, is a nation's story ever really over? Their legacy is now forever tied to the land they fought for, and to the brilliant, brutal king they gave to their oldest enemy. A whole nation is gone, but its story is written directly into the history of its greatest rival.